Hey friends, Amy Astrab with Ad Astra Stamping. I am back to do the March Paper Pumpkin Kit. That's March 2021, and that is called Here's to You. So I am going to flip the camera down and we're going to get started making these fun cards. So here we go. I'm going to try to get this camera down so you can see things a little more clearly. And I apologize for my squeaky chair. One of these days I'm going to get that fixed. If you are interested in ordering Paper Pumpkin, you can visit adastrastamping.stampinup.net and just look for Paper Pumpkin. There are a variety of ways to subscribe, but if you're interested, feel free to contact me or just visit the website. Now I am going to go ahead and pull out the parts and pieces we need to start assembling this month's card kit. Now the kit comes with an ink spot, and this month's ink spot is the Calypso Coral. I am going to be saving that sealed so it doesn't dry up on me. I'm going to be using my full-sized Stampin' Up! Ink pad today. And I have got everything kind of laid out here. So I've already blocked up the photopolymer stamps that we're going to use for this first card. And the first thing we're going to need to do is to go ahead and stamp our sentiments. So for the first card we are going to be making, we're using the Pretty Peacock card base, which is pre-scored. I have already folded mine. We will be gluing this on the front, but first we're going to stamp the sentiments that we need to go with it. The way they show theirs, it is done with the Happy Birthday stamp. So I have mounted that on my block that came with the Paper Pumpkin. I'm going to turn this around so it's right side up for you. And actually we want it on the small. There's some larger tags and some smaller tags. We're going to do 3 of the Happy Birthday on the small tags. Now I recommend when you use photopolymer stamps that you put some kind of a cushion or foam mat underneath before you start stamping. I am using the foam pad, the deluxe foam. That's something that I love using when I work with stamps. And it's just a stamp positioning tool. I would highly recommend it if you do a lot of stamping. So that's something you might want to look up. It's called the Stamparatus. But for today, we are using what is in the kit, or at least for these cards. So we've got 3 Happy Birthday sentiments stamped. And we also need to, after we punch these out, there's some little birds that are flying, and we're going to stamp those on the tag that has the clouds on it. So let me pop these little happy birthdays out. We actually are having a fairly overcast and cloudy day, which is kind of what this card has on the front of it. It's got a lot of clouds. And I guess actually the birds actually stamp on here for this card. So we're going to take these 2 little flying birds and we're just going to pop them right up here between these clouds. Now I also like to let the stamp sit there on the paper just briefly to allow the ink to soak in good before I lift it up. If you pull it up too quickly, sometimes it doesn't get a chance to fully absorb into the cardstock. So we've got our little birds stamped right up there in the sky. And we are ready to go ahead and mount this. Now this one actually gets some of the linen thread on it. So we're going to take and wrap this 3 times. Per the instructions, I believe they said 26 inches or 66 centimeters of linen thread. They looped it 3 times and used mini dimensionals in the back to adhere it to the card base. So I'm going to just snip that. Now, glue and scissors are about the only 2 things that don't come with your paper pumpkin. I would recommend a good sharp pair of scissors. The Stampin' Up! Snips, paper snips, are really good ones, but you can use Fiskars or whatever you've got. Just make sure they're a good sharp pair, especially if you're going to be cutting any ribbon with them. And there are some little glue dots that come with your kit. But for the sake of being speedy tonight, I am going to go ahead and grab my Stampin' Seal and just pop some adhesive down to hold those in place. The glue dots work great. They just take a little more time. We are going to pop this up or elevate it with the Stampin' Dimensionals that come with the kit. I already had some open, so I'm not using the exact same ones that came with this kit. There were some that I have left over from another kit. So we're going to be sticking these right on the back of this panel. You can tuck some right there by the thread just to kind of help hold things in place. Don't be afraid to use the edges of the Stampin' Dimensionals. They work just as well as the little hexagon shapes. And I don't like to waste a thing. You will want to be sure and just pop some in the middle as well, just to get plenty of cushion, especially for mailing purposes. It will help it go through the mail a little easier. And then just pull off the backings. Now, if you've got the full-size dimensionals, these are the minis, so they're the tiny ones. If you've got some of the full-size dimensionals, it would not take quite as many. It would be a little less tedious, but since there are some smaller elements, it's really great that they put the mini dimensionals in this kit because you will want them on some of these other smaller tags and things. Just so you're aware, the dimensionals also come in black. And I believe that package of black comes with both the large and the small, if I'm not mistaken, all in one packet. All right, so once you get this linen thread on and get all of your Stampin' Dimensionals, you'll just center that right in the center of that card base and pop it down just like that. And now we are ready to add our happy birthday sentiments. So those are going to go, they're just stacked basically right on top of one another. So they just go, you put one right kind of over your linen thread and one above and one below. That's the way they've got it. And I'm going to just kind of spread my linen thread out just a wee little bit. And you could certainly pop these up with dimensionals. I think the center one, I am going to go ahead and do that just because it is over the linen thread. It will A, help hold the linen thread in place, and B, it will also serve to just kind of pop that center up a little bit. So now I have used up all those dimensionals. I'm going to go ahead and open up this new pack. It came with the kit. Try to use one up before I start on with the next. Now this handy little tool that I am using to put these on with is called a Take Your Pick tool. I absolutely love it. It has various functions. I use this pick all the time for things like taking these backings off. But the other end also has a little putty tool, which will help you pick things up like sequins or any kind of little jewels or gems or small pieces. You can just use it to pick those up with. And then it also has a little spatula tool, which comes in handy for lots of little things. You could also use this to pop things up off of like the glue dots or little gems in particular. It's really good for. And then there's also another little tool that pops in here that has two different sizes of stylus on it. So, but I find that I use the pick end and the putty end most frequently. So I'm just going to pop this right on top of the linen thread and press it down so I make sure that it adheres to the card base itself and not just the thread. And then you could certainly pop these up as well. I think I am just going to glue them down and leave the one popped up. Now you could certainly use any kind of glue that you like. I really love this Tombow mono-adhesive glue. It adheres fairly quickly, but gives you just enough time to kind of have a little wiggle room to get things on straight, because you'll want those to be even with one another so that they're not cockeyed. Now this is something that you can purchase at a craft supply store, but it is also available through Stampin' Up, which is very convenient. So that if you're placing an order for some other items through Stampin' Up, that you can just add that to any order and have it delivered right with all of your other goodies. And there is card number 1. Since that is a happy birthday card, let's see what sentiment we have that we can, I think we'll go with all the best for a happy, healthy, and prosperous year. Now, something I did not mention because I played around with these other stamps earlier is that before I stamp with them, before I ink them up, I like to clean them off real good. It just helps the ink stick better. When they come direct from the factory, they kind of have a little bit of a film on them, and it sometimes can repel that ink. So I try to be sure they're good and clean before I stamp with them. And then the other thing I like to do is, rather than sticking them on like you just watched me do, The better way to do it is to lay it down and pick it up with the block. And that ensures that it is on there good and straight and isn't going to be on there crooked or wonky, because these photopolymer stamps are very flexible and you can get them on there a little bit crooked if you're not careful. And I have to apologize. I am working upside down so that it is right side up for the camera. And again, I'm just going to let that sit for a second, make sure it adheres well, which is especially good for these really tiny letters. This one is a very small sentiment, so you want a good, crisp, clean image when you stamp that. Now, if for some reason, like that one, I got just a little bit crooked, I am going to leave it. I think it's fine. If that is something that's going to bother you, you can always, if you mess up, just stamp on another piece of cardstock and just glue it over the top and make it look like you've made it that way on purpose. The first thing I learned when I started stamping is there are no mistakes in stamping. There's just opportunities to embellish. So there is our card number 1, all finished and ready to send out. Grab a quick sip of coffee here, and we will move right on to card number 2. So this card also gets the little bird stamp on it. So I'm going to put the birds back on this block. And I'm going to clean up just a little bit here so that I don't have so much laying around in the way. Now these handy little things that have the stamps on them, it's good to keep your stamps on them. That way you, don't lose them, but it also helps you read what they actually say. And if you did not know this, you can actually purchase empty stamp cases like the ones Stampin' Up's sets come in. So you can purchase 4 of these in a package, and then you can actually download and print an insert to put inside this case that will tell you what month and give you a nice picture of what's in the set right there so that you can store them and organize them very neatly. So that is something that you can look for. My Paper Pumpkin group, that's Ad Astra Paper Pumpkin group on Facebook. It is a private group, but just ask to join, and I am happy to include you in our group. And then you can see where those come from. Or you can probably just find them online if you searched Paper Pumpkin, but it's a little more difficult that way. Jump on my group. I'm happy to guide you along the way. Now this card base actually has a pre-printed picture on it of a beautiful sunrise with a mountainous scene and some pine trees, and we're just going to add some elements to that. We've got, you watched me punch this little set of trees out. These are going to pop right on here like so, and then we've got a couple of other little clouds that we're going to glue up here. And then we've got our sentiment and this little green strip that are going to go down towards the bottom. So the bigger tag that that came with the set is the one that we will use for this card. If I can find where I laid it down at. I wanted to go ahead and get those stamped real quick, and I don't know where I put the labels. Oh Too many things on my desk, I'll tell you. My craft room is a complete disaster area. Oh, here they are. I tossed them back in the box. Been too busy creating and not doing enough straightening back up. Okay, so this card, they used the sentiment, "Here's to you," which I really actually like for this card. And then you could actually stamp whatever you wanted inside. You could do "Happy Birthday" inside if you wanted. Now, I have already stamped with these, so I am not going to need to clean them again. And I believe our birds, yeah, our birds go on the yellow piece according to the way they made the card. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the "Here's to you" right on the white tag. Now, that came out pretty good. If it did not, you could always flip this over and use the back side to stamp it if you didn't get a good, clean, clear stamp. It does happen, even to the best of us. And our little birds are going to go right here. Now, if you're unsure how those birds are supposed to go, because they're both flying and their wings are not the same, I just stamped them the first time on a piece of scratch paper just to kind of see what they look like and get the proper orientation before I stamped on the actual card base. That will give you a pretty good idea. Go ahead and close this up so I don't get my arm in it. Wound up getting ink all over my favorite sweatshirt. Thankfully, it's a really old sweatshirt and already had paint on it, but I was very sad. It actually wasn't even Stampin' Up! Ink. It was ink from an ink pen. Got all over the front of it. So for this card, these elements, I believe, it looks like they popped them up with the Stampin' Dimensionals too, and I do like that idea. You could absolutely use the glue dots, but I really like some dimension to my cards. So I am going to go ahead and stick some dimensionals right on these elements. Now, there's not a ton of stamping on this particular card. A lot of it is more assembly, but they gave a bonus of some templates, some stencils, I should say, in this kit. And I will, after we get these cards made, I will show you what a neat idea it is and how to use them. And I actually have not used them yet. I'm pretty excited to get started and get those out and start working with them. I have been anxiously awaiting the arrival of this kit. Now they offset some of these, so that is what I'm going to do as well. So this one goes a little more over to the edge of the card, and the skinnier orange one and you might take the time to make sure that your card or your clouds are oriented the way you want them, so they don't look upside down. And I'm going to kind of line that up just past the corner of the image that's printed on there. Now down here, I am going to actually do the same thing. We've got the trees. I think we'll do the trees next. And I do love that they're popped up. It's a fun look. It just gives so much dimension to the card. Kind of gives you that 3D effect. The trees pop up out of the foreground, and then you've got the other images in the back. And like I said, it can be easier if you've got the big dimensionals, but when you're working with smaller elements like this, these mini dimensionals are absolutely fabulous. It saves a lot of time in having to cut down into smaller pieces the larger dimensionals. And I'm gonna see if, excuse me, I'm getting a little hoarse today. I am gonna actually cut one of these down. And I don't like to use my regular paper snips for cutting anything with a sticky adhesive. So I have a separate pair of really sharp older Fiskars that I've had for forever. Since before I got those fabulous paper snips, these were my go-tos, but now they are my adhesive scissors. So I put a half of one down here on this end, and I am just going to stick that other half back on the little sheet from whence it came for another time, because I will probably want to use it on a different one of these cards. I trimmed all my nails down the other day, and now they're too short, and I have no option but to use this pick, whether I like it or not. Now, I did play around and make a couple alternatives to this set last night. I always like to do my own creations with the kids as well as trying theirs. By all means, when you get your kit, if you want to make them all from the directions, that is entirely up to you. You can make them all the way they suggest. You can make none of them the way that they suggest. You can do your own thing with all of them. That's the great part about these kits. You get all of these. It's almost like Christmas every month when they come. And you get to play around with it and do whatever you want with it. So it is just like giving myself a Christmas present every single month. Now, this actually does line up with your image. So I'm lining the corner of this. You can see that this corner, I'm lining with this corner. And then the tree actually sticks over the edge a little bit. So I just want to line that bottom up with the bottom edge of that card, and then make sure that all of my trees are stuck down. Now see the nice 3D dimension you get by doing those mini dimensionals in there. Okay, we're not quite done yet. We've got a little bit more. I'm going to pop this green piece up, and then we are going to pop our sentiment up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the dimensionals on those as well really quick. Especially on these narrow pieces. Having a tool to help guide your way is always a good idea. I still managed to get that one crooked because I got in a hurry. Move it over just a little bit there. Now they give you a lot of these dimensionals, so don't be too stingy. Make sure you get plenty on your different elements. Okay. Now they show this little green strip kind of going over here underneath the trees and going a little bit past this edge, so kind of to where the edge of this tree is. And yeah, so just kind of like that, and try to just keep an even space in between it and the bottom of that. And then actually, I think they just glued this down to these two pieces. And I already have dimensionals on here. So I can either go ahead and pop that up, but I think instead I'm going to restamp. I'll use that on another card. And we also need some thread on this one. And where we had like 26 inches on the other one, where we wrapped it around that panel, we're not going to need that much. Just got ink on my fingers. Wipe that off before I get it all over everywhere. And that is one advantage to using that ink spot. It is a little easier to use with these smaller images. All right. Okay, now I need some of that linen thread, and I think, let me check the directions here. For that one, it says 16 inches, and we're going to do what they call nesting. Now, the instructions actually include your little ruler in here that you can measure with. So it goes all the way to 9 inches. So we can measure to the 8-inch mark twice and have our 16 inches. Now, I absolutely could have done that on my deluxe foam mat or even my grid paper, but I wanted you to see that even the ruler is also included with your paper pumpkin kit. They've really done a nice job of thinking it through. Now, they said to do what they call nesting. So basically, you're just making a little round twine circle. And what we're going to do, we're going to take the ends of these and just kind of adhere them to the back of our sentiment tag with the little glue dots. So if you just, I'm going to take a couple of them since we have plenty, and just kind of put them side by side and pop off that adhesive backing. And then I'm going to take the part of my twine that has the ends and try to make sure I am catching the ends of this nested twine on those glue dots, like so. And then I am going to go ahead and do the same over here with a couple of glue dots as well, just for the sake of kind of holding them in place when we glue this down. So that when we turn it over, it's sticking to me better than it is the. All right. And then you can just kind of play with it a little bit if you need to get that. But don't spend a ton of time. It's supposed to be free form, kind of. Main thing is you want to make sure that you catch the ends so they don't come unraveled on you after you get the card made and ready to go in the mail. So I have just added some glue, and I am just going to kind of bridge the gap here between the two, and I probably should see if I can move that twine up. I got a little low on the one side. I don't know if I can get it to, there we go. Try to pop it up a little bit there. You may have to kind of hold that in place for just a minute while that glue gets a little bit tacky. There we go. Yeah. All right, and there we have it. And you could do the inside either with the happy birthday, if you wanted to make this a birthday card. You could put, there is a congratulations that you could use. Would be very fitting with that front sentiment as well. I think I am going to leave mine blank for now because I am undecided on what I will use that one for. I will go ahead and show you real quick the envelopes. So for the one we just made, the Here's to You, we've got a nice liner that goes inside this beautiful craft colored envelope. And you can use these glue dots or just a little dab of glue to just kind of tack that in place. And then it's ready for your card to go in. Now I have taken the stamps and gone ahead and stamped on the flap, Here's to You. And the little flower image that's also in here, I went ahead and popped that in the front corner just to kind of decorate and make the outside of the envelope as fancy as the inside and the card itself. So just extra little touches that you can add to your card to make it extra special for those who receive it. So here is the other. I did it in a different color. So you absolutely, with the colors that you collect in your monthly paper pumpkin kit, every month is a different color. They never repeat a color within 12 months. So you could absolutely use, this is the Pretty Peacock, which coordinates with this stamp set, or with this, with this kit. I did go ahead and do the Here's to You. Now this one has a floral liner in it that matches the flowers that are on the card. So that one is all ready to go. And then my alternative card is similar, but I had extra of the trees. So I did one glued flat in the background and popped the second one up and over so that it looks like there's more layers of the trees. I put my Here's to You up here instead of down below. And I popped up just this one, just the tag that has the Here's to You stamped on it. The yellow and the green, I went ahead and glued flat. So that is that card. And on the inside of it, I went ahead and stamped the tree image. Now you'll see that I forgot to stamp before I used it the first time. And see, I did not get a good, clear, crisp image. Now, there is a way to kind of fix that while your ink is still fairly fresh. You can take a blender pen and just kind of rub over that, and it will go ahead and blend it. I'll see if it will still work. I did these last night, so the ink is fairly dry and it may not work as well, but if the ink were fresher, it's helping some. You can just kind of work that ink around and blend it in a little bit better. If you've got the Stampin' Write markers, you absolutely would be able to touch it up with a marker if you've got the same color that you stamped in. But that did a little bit better job of blending it. I saved it on purpose just so you could see what I was talking about, getting a good, clean, crisp image. So that is why I say that. Clean them off good before you stamp the first time. I went ahead and added the stamp that was in here that says, "May your journey through life take you to many new and exciting places." So that is that alternative card. And I've got one more here somewhere. Let's see where I laid it at. Here it is. So it is with the other card base. I added some extra birds on it, and I took one of the little green strips, stamped "Congratulations," and actually layered it over the top of the wider tag or label that was in the kit. So just kind of did my own thing with the labels there. Added a little bow with the linen thread and stamped "Congratulations." So I could put whatever sentiment inside. Probably would do something similar to that one, or maybe the other one that says "All the best for a happy, healthy, and prosperous year." Either one really would work fine, depending on what I'm congratulating them for. So I kind of left that empty and ready to go. So that is our card demonstration. Now I want to get to the fun stuff. So I am going to move some of this out of the way and get out the stencils and the sponge that came with this month's kit. So they sent us this nice big round sponge, and I wanted to show you what I do with these. This is my old Stampin' Up! Scissors. Love them. They're still favorites. They're a little bit longer, but you could do this with your snips, or if you've got another larger pair of scissors. Cut it in half, and then go ahead and cut each half in half. So you're cutting it in quarters. That's what you're going to do. Once you've got it cut into quarters, you can either hold it just like that to use it, or what a lot of people like to do is get you a binder clip. It gives you something a little meatier to hang on to use your sponge with. That's what I'm going to do with it. All right, and then we're going to get out these really cute stencils that Stampin' Up! Has provided. And we're going to make the magic happen. So I'm going to set those to a side for just a minute, and let's start with the stars. Okay. Now I cut some pieces of white cardstock that I want to work with here. And I'm going to get my ink pad out. I'll just go ahead and use the Calypso Coral since I've got it handy. But you could absolutely do this in any color you wanted. And you could do it on any color besides white that you wanted as well. But for the purposes of what's handy, that's what we're going to go with. So just pounce your sponge right into your ink pad, or if you're working with the ink spots, you can absolutely just take it and either pounce on it or pounce it on your sponge, either way. Now the key to this is making sure that you don't let your stencil move while you're applying ink. Like that. See, I just let it move and it smudged my image. So that is a key thing. Now, if you've got any kind of painter's tape or washi tape, that would be my suggestion. line it up, and get just a tad bit of tape. That's what I'm going to do here. And just add a little bit of tape to keep everything in place. And I'm actually going to come off the edge of the paper just a little bit. I'm going to catch the edge of the template without covering any of the holes on it, on our stencil. And I've got just the edge of that paper. So it's going to help hold things in place for me. Now you can tap, and you're going to get a more textured look, a more modeled look to the ink, or you can rub or circle around to get a smoother look to your applied ink. And if you add a lot of ink here, and then as you work your way down, let your ink kind of run out so that you have less. You will get more of an ombre look, you know, the dark to the light. And that's kind of what I'm going for with this one. So let's see what the magic made. Oh yes, I'm very happy with that. So take our template off. Now I will need to trim just the edge because I did go off because this was not covered by the stencil, but I can just trim that down. And look at that. I've got this beautiful starry background with an actual ombre effect. Now I could have made it dark down there so that all the stars were the same shade, but I kind of like that they fade off into a lighter color at the bottom. So that's going to be fun to create with. Let's try the sunburst pattern. I'm excited about it. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to lay this on here and use this washi tape just to kind of hold everything where I want it. Now, by all means, if you are steady enough, you could certainly hold both in place. I am not that coordinated. So I am going to, now this one's going to be a little trickier, I can already tell, because these center pieces are not attached to one another. They are loose. So this is going to be a little trickier to use than the stars. Okay. So I'm having to pounce on the center circle. If you pounce enough, it's going to smooth out some. And if you go from the outside in, whoop, nope. Yeah, we're all right. It didn't mess up too bad. This one does not work quite as well as I had hoped. So you'll have to be a little careful and kind of almost hold those centers down some. But you know what? It's supposed to be sun rays and they don't need to be perfect. So I still think we can do some fun stuff with this. It's just going to take a little more practice to get it the way I want it. So just be aware when you go to do the sunburst, it's a little trickier than the stars. I think the stars may wind up being my favorite out of all of this, although the clouds could come in handy. Now I am sponging a lot of ink on here. You totally would not have to go this heavy with the ink. I want to get a nice dark design. So there is our sunburst. Again, I'll trim this edge off, but I'm happy with the results of that. That can be a lot of fun. And fun way to create some new custom cards with your monthly kit. So I hope this has been some great tips for you and you've had a good time. I'd love to hear your comments. Please leave them below. Thanks and happy stamping.